I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Lakota Board of Education. Jenny, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Mr. Lovell?
Here.
Mrs. O'Connor?
Here.
Mr. Parnell?
Here.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Here. And if we could have Sean Carlin please join us at the mic to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. He's working on one of his badges, and so he was coming to our meeting this evening, and so we wanted to recognize him and have him lead us in that. So we appreciate your assistance. Thank you. Now do I have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jenny, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Lovell?
Yes.
Mr. Parnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Yes. For the board, this is our last meeting this year, so I'm sure you're terribly disappointed.
So sad.
So next year, we'll need to start with our organizational meeting, so we wanted to propose doing that on January 14th, which would be the second Monday, which would be our follow our traditional path of when we typically have meetings. So does that meet with the board's approval of, does that work for everyone's schedule to do that on the second Monday of January?
I'm going to say yes, but my phone is currently in my car. So.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Works.
And then followed by a regular meeting the same night.
That was our thought.
Yep.
Okay,
Great.
and that's all for my comments. Mr. Miller?
Just, we're getting ready to roll into the winter break, and there's so many things going on in our schools. It's hard to keep up with all the excitement and all the great things that our kids and teachers are doing. So we appreciate that as we head into Christmas and winter break.
Thank you. Mrs. Logan?
I'm going to call Julie Joyce Smith to the podium. She is here for her quarterly update for Roger Reynolds, our county auditor. So take it away, Julie.
Thank you very much for allowing me a few minutes of your time. I know you have a very busy agenda. Things going on in the auditor's office that impact the school district and the school district itself. First and foremost, we've just received word that our value abstract for 2018 payable 19 has been approved, which means we're now busy working on getting tax rates ready to go so that we can have tax bills after the first of the year. And with the holidays coming up, I'm sure everybody's thrilled to be thinking about tax bills. So just don't shoot the messenger on that one. But I think with looking back just a little bit on what we've done this year in the auditor's office and how it impacts you, the residents here in Lakota, first and foremost, we are constantly working with law enforcement and then using our own devices to keep up with the skimmers and the skimmers on the gas pumps. We've had, since November of 2015, we've had 20 skimmers that we have found in Butler County. And while that's not a giant number in that length of time, it's just quite frankly 20 too many. So just now with the Christmas shopping and the holiday shopping, people being out and about, just please be vigilant at the gas pumps. Do not use a debit card. We can't stress that enough. If you have a hinky feeling about a gas station or a series of pumps or something doesn't look quite right, trust your senses and move on. What we have been very fortunate in the very recent past is to discover we have some video footage of a culprit inside a pump. We're able to get some pertinent information such as, the vehicle description and the driver's license and all, or the tag on the car. So we're working very closely with the FBI, so I really can't give you more than that, but we're hoping this is going to extend to maybe a larger ring. So we're hoping to close that down. Unfortunately, as the more efforts that we put at the pumps, we find that the technology is changing almost daily. So we're looking to shut it down, but these criminals are pretty crafty. So again, they target the 75 to 75 loops, the heavy interstates. If you're traveling over the holidays, going to other states, please be aware that this is going on and you don't want your credit card information compromised. We were telling folks in the past that Kroger and Thornton's were probably your safest bet. The good news is most of the stations in the last year have updated their pumps and have gone to a more secure pump that separates the receipt portion from the inner workings of the pump. So if they open the receipt portion or they try to open the portion to attach the skimmer, it will shut the skimmer down. So most of them, Speedway, that kind of thing, they're getting on board with the updating of their technology. While we're talking about gas stations, as I've mentioned in the past, Ohio is one of 3 states that has no fuel quality testing. We're working very hard with our local legislators to have someone carry the ball for us this coming year on that. So if you have questions about this, Ohio is one of 3 states, Ohio, Nebraska, and Alaska, that have absolutely no fuel quality testing standards, and that's just not great, because when you have large companies, gas companies, delivering gas that may be lesser quality, they're not taking it to Kentucky and they're not taking it to Indiana. You can guess where they're taking it. So we want to protect the consumers at the pump, and we're working very vigilantly with that. So I know as a board you can't really do a lot, but as voters, you certainly can reach out to your legislators and let them know that this might be something that's important to you. And if you want more information on any of this, you could see me after, or go to the Butler County Auditor's website. We have all kinds of information about skimmers and fuel quality and all that fun stuff. Finally, December is time to tag your dog in Butler County, actually in the state of Ohio. It is a law that you're required to have a dog license on your pooch. More so than it being a law and just having to pay for the tag, it's a free ride home should your dogs get out, and I can attest to this because both of mine got out about 3 weeks ago. And because they had their tags on, they were able to find me pretty quickly, and even though they were a mile away and on a big adventure, I was able to get them home safely. And then finally, we're always kind of shaking the bushes looking for those senior citizens, 65 and older, or folks who are younger but are disabled and own their homes, to let them know that there's a homestead exemption available. We exempt the first $25,000 in value of your home. For a homeowner here in Lakota, that's about an $800 a year credit on your tax bill. And then also in addition to that, for disabled veterans, it's about a $1,600 deduction in taxes. So if you think you know of somebody who may qualify for this exemption, may not be getting it, you can double check on the auditor's website. All you have to do is do a search for that owner's property. On the first page at the bottom, it'll tell you homestead yes, homestead no. We try to make it pretty easy. And again, if you have any questions, we would love you to call the auditor's office and talk to us. So that's all I have. In case you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, or otherwise I want to wish you a happy holidays, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, with that, we will move to our student and staff spotlight, and Betsy is coming forward to start that for us.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Miller, Mrs. Logan. Every November, the Ohio School Boards Association hosts its annual convention in Columbus. As part of Capital Conference, OSBA hosts the Student Achievement Fair. It's a one-day event that showcases the achievements of districts throughout the state. Each district must apply and compete against one another in order to gain a spot at the fair. There are only 1 booth available for over 600 school districts, and this year, 2 groups from Lakota were chosen. Addison Johnson, Sophia Ford, Sammy Katona, and Nora Hunley from Van Gordon Elementary School shared with attendees how their class built prosthetic hands using their 3D printer for children in need. Our second group shared their passion for art with the conference attendees. Allison Power, Megan Glass, Carol Perez, and Audrey Albert, all seniors from Lakota West High School, demonstrated art techniques and displayed their work at the booth called Through the Eyes of the Artist. In addition to the booths, 5 performance groups in the state are selected to provide entertainment. This year, conference goers were treated to a reunion concert. The original members of the Liberty Junior School Bucket Drum Club, now all students at East Freshman, Bryson Blankenship, Jamal Boyd, Josue Gonzalez, Jordan Lukenheimer, Ethan Oyoko, and Ty Parrish, traveled to Columbus and wowed the audience. Biggest crowd of all the performance groups. It's my pleasure to introduce the members of the 3 Lakota groups to speak to you about their experience. Girls, you gonna start? Somebody gets it? Okay.
Hi, I'm Audrey Albert. So we were the group of artists at the event in Columbus, and we had a lot of fun. What I really noticed was that at the event, there were not very many tables that were centered around art. So then it made me feel very happy and honored to be a part of this school where art is such a big deal, and we have such a good program, and I can really grow through that.
Hi, my name's Allison Power, and at this event I had a really good time sharing my art with the other schools and teachers and talking to them about it. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Megan Glass. I really enjoyed the event, but it also scared me a little to see how little other schools emphasized art in their program, and it did make me, as Audrey already said, very happy to see that our program is alive, and I hope it continues to stay alive in the future.
Hi, my name is Carol Perez. I really liked the event because even though we were the only kind of art, what was it, booth, it was really fun kind of interacting and seeing how other schools versus us, and how I think we have a really strong program, and it was just fun to connect with other people. Me and Audrey got the honor to be interviewed by another school, and it was just really cool to see their own perspective and how it contrasted with ours.
Hi, I'm Sophia Ford, and I was a part of the prosthetic hand. So once our teacher came up to us in technology class and said, "What do you want to change the world one hand at a time?" And we volunteered to do that.
Hi, my name is Nora Hundley, and it took us about 18 hours to make sure that everything from the 3D printer was printed correctly, and about 24 hours, including the time that it spent with the printer, to be able to assemble the hands.
Hi, I'm Sammy Katona, and after we made the hands, we shipped them off to North Carolina, and they shipped them to kids that needed a hand.
Hi, my name's Addison Johnson, and we hope that this project inspires others to use technology to think outside the box to help other people.
Okay, so I'm Bryson Blankenship, and well, we just like to make noise. We like to tap our pencils, and Mr. Schreier got annoyed with that, so he gave us sticks and buckets and told us to have at it. So it's probably the best part about it.
I'm Ty Parrish. My favorite part is just being able to make your own beats and have a good time.
My name is Ethan Oyako. I've been playing drums for 10 years. The best thing about Bucket Drum is that you make your own beats, and you go on YouTube and check out the beats as well. So yeah, that's the favorite thing about me.
Hi, I'm Jordan Lunkenheimer, and what got me into bucket drumming was me and Jamal would just sit there in social studies with Mr. Schreier and just tap our pencils and annoy him. And he gave me the idea to join it because we would just make the beats, and then my favorite part was just being able to hang out with the guys and do our own thing.
I'm Jamal Boyd, and I got started with Mr. Schreier, like Jordan said, the pencil tapping in class to annoy Mr. Schreier. And then one day he brought out buckets and started playing beats, and then the next day we decided to have a practice after school.
All right, my name is Josue Gonzalez, and like Jamal said, Mr. Schreier one day decided to take out the buckets, and he said he was good at playing the buckets, and I'm like, all right. And out of nowhere, I realized that I was sitting on top of a bucket, and I had a bucket in front of me, and I played something, and we had lots of fun. That's where I could say that was the beginning of something.
I would also like to say shout out to Mr. Schreier.
Let's give a hand to all these kids real quick. So I'm going off script a little bit. Usually when we do these, we have the students get acknowledged, and then we take the photos, and then we have the staff members. And tonight, the way that it's going, and you guys gave me this idea, why don't you introduce your teachers that helped you do this project, say a couple words about just one from each group, say a couple words and have them come up while you're acknowledging them, okay? Good? I know you're on the spot. I'll start with the boys, because collect your thoughts.
So our advisor was Mr. Schreier. He brought in buckets one day and decided to play a few beats. And we had to kind of do the same beat as him. And then a couple days later, we started practices. And then we performed a couple times and then performed at the East game. And then the Reds game. And where else? Oh, yeah, the Columbus Convention Center.
It wasn't a game.
Mrs. Haynes isn't here, so you can mention that too.
So our teacher was Mrs. Haynes, and she isn't here tonight, but she helped us just like branch out and be ourselves. And she's just been a big help to us and helped us like know that other people who do not have hands, we can really help others in need.
So our two art teachers are Mrs. Kessler and Mrs. Gower, and they've been there every step of the way for us in our creative process. If we have any questions, they're always there for us. If we ever reach art block or need inspiration, they're always there to help get us through it. And they've been our mentors for years now, and we're so grateful for them.
Do they want to say anything? Do our teachers want to say anything?
Good job. Good job.
We want everybody in one picture. Are we really going to get everybody in one picture? Okay. It'll be really easy for me to hide.
So while we're getting ready, I think you had a couple things you wanted to say? Yeah,
Mr. Miller. Okay, I'm going to make this short and sweet. I just want to say it was an honor to represent Lakota and Columbus, and just given the opportunity to showcase our art students and their achievements. I love to brag about my students. I really do. They have no idea how much I talk them up. I don't do it in class because then that would kind of give them, you know, ideas. But I definitely talk them up outside of class a lot. Lots of school administrators stopped by our booth asking about our program just because they were so impressed with the students' work and their awards that they received. And they wanted to know how they could get their kids to do the same thing. So we did our best to explain our program as quickly as we possibly could. And then just to kind of give you an update on like what's going on with these kids right now, we're getting ready for probably our biggest competition of the year. We've got two, actually, we're kind of working on simultaneously, but we should be getting some good results here about middle of January, so there you go.
Yeah, believe it or not, 31 years ago this month, I came to Liberty Junior as a sixth grader. So never would have thought 31 years later I'd be standing up here tonight. I have no musical talent whatsoever. That is, I'm not a musical teacher. Literally, it was the tapping of pencils, and I actually went to my daughter's fifth grade concert. They played bucket drums. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. So I got a pair of sticks, a bucket, and literally got on YouTube and started playing beats. And it literally took me probably 3 weeks to learn a couple of beats. And I got all excited and went to school. And you guys remember in class that day, I got up there and played a couple of these beats thinking I was all cool. They literally grabbed the sticks, and within a minute, they knew all of them. So at that point, I knew we had something. And from that point on, it's just, you never know what life's going to throw at you. And it's been such a blessing to see just relationships built, confidence gained, to see smiles on their faces, to see Lakota East High School stand on their feet for these guys during a halftime when they played. It's been a really special ride with these guys, and believe me, they've made me look a lot better than I really am, for sure. So thank you to the board, thank you to Mr. Bauman, and just for the support we get with all of the crazy ideas that we come up with. It's a blessing to work in a district that says, yeah, run with those ideas, we're going to support you, and I'm very thankful for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. They do have your names on them, yeah. Maybe that's a good game you can play. All right.
Now we're going to move into administrative reports as they move on out, because we have our students who are going to want to go home and get some work done. But we're going to actually flip-flop strategic plan and program of studies. Mr. Miller just made that request.
Thank
so
you.
if we could have Mr. Coney come up and do program of studies, please.
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to present to the board and superintendent and treasurer a summary of the program of studies. This is the document and booklet from which students at the high school and junior high school levels choose their courses, find out about what offerings there are for the next year. And it's traditional that we would bring this to the Board of Education each December so that it can go to print in January. What you have before you is an update of that. And to be perfectly honest, we are in the process of reformatting the entire document to make it more user-friendly and streamlined. And as we keep digging into that, we keep finding out that there's more and more work to be done, just simple things of organization and lining things up. So do not have a final product to present to you, but these are all the main ideas. As you know, we've spent a lot of time, I was here last month, speaking about the redesigning of our high school experience that we've been going through this year to line up everything around the 4 E's, employment, enlistment, enrollment, and entrepreneurship. And a lot of those are baked right into the changes that we have for the program of studies for this year. It also looks at developing a future-ready framework for our students to be able to be successful in whatever they walk into in the future. There are 2 programs to study. There is one for the junior high school and one for the high school. The junior high school had a lot of changes to it last year, which we implemented this year and are currently implementing. And those are going very well. And so the changes for this year are minimal for the junior high school and are mostly in format only. The classes that we added in there in the business tech realm and the media design and communications courses have been going incredibly well. And the work that I keep seeing in classrooms and on social media of the work those students are doing is fantastic. So for this year, there are no substantive changes to courses in the junior high school program of studies. For the high school, there are multiple changes that you'll see. Most of them are related to the streamlined additional technology courses. And then what we would plan to do is in the spring return with a 3-year plan of changes to the entire program of study over that time. But I'd like to go through a few of these. As I said, we have sort of reorganized some of it. We've got some feedback from our counselors, from our administrators, and our students and parents that there were some opportunities that were missed in the program of studies because of the way it was laid out. So we've tried to streamline some of those, working with our counselors to do that. The first of those you'll see is in computer science and technology. This section was sort of separated out between Butler Tech courses and Lakota courses, and it didn't make any sense because they were really part of the same pathway. We wanted to bring those together to make it easier for parents and students to make decisions. So that's the first piece of that. The second is us offering AP Computer Science principles to freshmen. That brings us in line with most of our neighboring schools, and it also allows us to have a very strong entry point into our computer science pathway that leads for traditional Butler Tech courses or for courses taught by our Lakota teachers as well. The other thing that does is it makes that a prerequisite for our Butler Tech courses, which is helpful in lining up our pathway. It brings our total offerings of courses to 8, all of which offer college credit options or career-ready certificates, which is something we're also looking at, is any additional offerings we have an endpoint that is more than just a credit on a transcript. It brings us to someplace as a graduate. The second addition that you'll see there is the Lakota Cyber Academy. We are thrilled with the opportunity that this has for us. On Wednesday evening, we're having our first Lakota Cyber Academy Information Night. We have currently about 280 people attending that event. It's at 7 o'clock at the Marriott in Westchester. We are partnering with an outside business partner of ours to provide that programming for our students. And so the program of study is laid out for the courses that are offered next year, which is Cyber 1, and then the Cyber Sprint for our seniors. And then it also calls out Cyber 2, which is not officially offered until the following school year, the 2021 school year. But we wanted to include that in there so that there was no confusion for students or parents as they're selecting courses. We traditionally don't list out courses that might not be offered that next year, but we wanted to make sure it was streamlined as possible and spelled out there. So those courses are called out. The last is an offering through Butler Tech that we're excited about is computer integrated manufacturing. And so this is along the Project Lead the Way pathway that we have for Butler Tech on Lakota campuses. We have an agreement that their current staffing can cover the opportunities there. They're drafting up for us the total articulation of that course within the program of study. But we're excited for this specifically because it bridges a gap between our main campus and Butler Tech, and it's also directly aligned to one of the 4 core growing job opportunities in Butler County and Southwest Ohio. So we're excited for those. Those are our additional courses that we've added into the program of study this year. But as I said, our next steps as we build out the curriculum for each of those and figure out the scheduling and the simple tallies for each of those courses, then we'll return in May with a full 3-year plan moving forward of what we hope to include in future programs of study in 2021 and beyond. So if there are any questions I can answer at this time, I'd be happy to.
I don't have anything. Good. I'd like to say thank you. I love to see this kind of programming and innovation in what we're doing, so thank you for the work that went into this.
Thank you.
I just want to, so it says that there'll be multiple changes, but I just want to but this is chronicling what those multiple changes are. So there aren't other changes beyond these changes that are going to be in the printed course of studies.
For course additions, correct.
Okay.
Those are the only course additions. By multiple changes, format, layout, those kind of things, okay. But additional courses, not for the 1920 school year.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coney. Moving on to the strategic plan. I think the document the board has in front of you, this is very similar to what we shared last month when we were talking about the strategic plan for 2019-2021. I'm going to say this probably a couple times tonight, but everything that's in the strategic plan are the things that we are doing at Lakota or should be doing at Lakota. So there's a lot of threads that are common when we're talking about cyber. That's in here, not specifically, but the innovative programs are in here for sure. But also where we want to be in the feedback, based on the feedback that we receive from our community. The first couple of slides are the same as what we presented. There is just some backup information for the board and for our community that I want to highlight tonight. The mission has stayed the same. Everything we do is designed to provide a future-ready, student-centered learning experience for every single child. That's what we've been doing. That's what we believe. The vision, and this is something that I think in a short amount of time will grow and people will be able to sort of rattle off because it's the things that we have been talking about. We are personalized. We are future-ready. We are fiscally responsible, thanks to Mrs. Logan and her team and the board. And we are in this together. And so that's the community and business aspect. Again, that's not new from last month. I just want to get to some of the metrics and things that we should talk about and that we will develop. We truly, and I have to give a shout out again to the executive team who really helped put this together, along with our staff and community input for sure. But one of the things that we keep saying, and we really want this to be, is a living, breathing document that evolves. It changes. It's not just going to go in a binder and go on a shelf, and then in 2021, we pull it out again and revise it. And a lot of times I think that's what schools get into, and we certainly don't want that. But the goals and the 90-day operational priorities are there. For the board, there's a section for the board, a section for essentially central office, and then building leadership. So you can see that there's strategic plan development, but also a facilities plan that'll be developed, which is vital because of the age of our buildings, because of the growth that I think we're going to see in Lakota, especially the northern part of our school district. But there's also an opportunity for the executive team is actually getting together tomorrow morning to flesh this out. So what you would be approving is the overall structure of the strategic plan and the framework. But it's going to be layered in with a lot of goals and things that you can see here on this page, but even beyond that. We want this to be everything that we do. Our feedback has been great from our focus groups. We've had many dialogues with our staff, with our opportunity with our businesses and community partners. In fact, we had a community conversation that many of you were at about 2 weeks ago on the strategic plan. I was able to talk about it too on Channel 9, and it's been the topic of many coffee chats and conversations that started out there as well. We're also, with your approval tonight, we will be talking to the staff about the rollout of this plan, what's in it, and what it means for them, and we're hoping to do that on January 2nd. And then communications will roll out there from for our business community, for our parents and everybody else. But we want to get this out there and start breathing and living it day to day. Common themes also to be included in here would be the redesign of the high school, the one-to-one rollout, our social emotional learning supports that we've actually seen ODE take part in. And so I am encouraged by that effort. I think there's a lot of potential for board input and checks and balances, not just in this plan, but also board development, and that's listed in one of the boxes as well. I know it's a lot to take a look at, but I wanted to give you the backup documents for the framework so you had those in front of you. I talked about the strategic planning process, the data that we got from our community, the conversations that we had on top of the community conversation we had just a couple weeks ago. We've got some data, an analysis from what our community believes about Lakota schools, and we're looking forward to those numbers hopefully going in a more positive directions. But we had our student focus groups and what the strengths were at our junior schools, and then what are the growth opportunities at the junior schools. And I found it pretty eye-opening, again, that the students are almost the most honest group that we get things from. Not that anyone's trying to mislead us, but it's also out of the mouths of babes, right? And so some of the things that they come up with are amazing. I would love to take the same sample of questions to the same group of kids a year or two from now and see what that looks like and see what they think. We had the same thing with strengths and with growth opportunities at our high school, both freshman buildings and the 2 large main campuses. And then we extended that opportunity to also to our staff as well, and the parent and community groups, as I mentioned several times already. But I wanted you to have it. I want you to take a look at it. Any questions you have now, but again, you would be approving essentially the framework and the structure of the strategic plan tonight, and then we build out from there. Thoughts, comments, questions?
Is there a timeline, Mr. Miller, for
3 years.
3 years to build it out?
Well, no, I think I think we're building out. Well, the whole plan is 3 years.
It's a 3-year plan.
Yeah, but we would have checks. There's some monthly checks in here, but also 90-day build out for us. It's a continual, ongoing, rolling strategic plan. Again, I don't want to cement something or memorialize something that we don't get a chance to tweak and get better at. But we all own a part of it. The board owns a part, the central office owns a part, and certainly the building leadership does as well. So it'll be ongoing. Good question. Anything else for the good of the order? Thank you.
Other thoughts?
I'm just digesting, sorry. I'm looking at it. I'm actually, I'm happy to see that there are the goals and that we are going to revisit after this and talk about how are we going to measure the success of this plan, right? We've got a lot of great things in here, and I'm completely supportive of everything in here. One of the things that I would probably challenge us as a board as we head into the new year, when we start thinking about if we want to maintain the work session structure, is looking at how do we think about goals for the board to help support this plan. And I don't necessarily know what those would be, but it would be a healthy discussion, I think. I don't know what your time frame is necessarily to say, hey, we want to have measurable objectives determined by this time. But as we look at that and as we head into the organizational structure in January, I think it'd be a great opportunity for us as a board to kind of zero in what do we want our goals to be for the year and how do we align it to the thing that's already existing.
You mean like board goals?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, board goals. And again, I love this. It's laid out kind of where our focus will be. But I think within that as well, there can be some things that we identify as being areas that we want to zero in a little bit more. I mean, we can't tackle everything necessarily, but just having an idea or a conversation around that would be really helpful.
So Brad
Agreed.
and I had talked about the potential of, and wanted to discuss it here today about, again, when we're setting time aside on everybody's calendar, because I know that gets filled up quickly, that this year we kind of toyed with doing some work sessions. If we wanted to set up that, again, our old schedule, who knows, we'll set the agenda and our meetings up at that first meeting on the 14th. But if we wanted to go ahead and right now set up the 28th as a work session, so we could already hit the ground running and set that up as a time where we would set the board's goals for the year. So if we wanted to think about that, because we knew we were going to be working on the strategic plan today, and we thought it would be helpful, again, if the board set clear goals for ourselves right away, and that would be that 4th Monday of the month, and thought that might be a good idea to set time aside, and so that we could all be aligned in our goal setting for the year, if that was agreeable to the board. So that was a thought that we had when we were talking about knowing that we were discussing the strategic plan today.
So I will be in Washington for the Federal Advocacy Institute
Okay.
on the 28th.
Okay.
So maybe we can find another date, so we can work on that, so that we can.
Yeah, I think it's
with the
important.
intent would be to
Sure.
try to find something in January to, I think, I guess, are we all in agreement that it would be a good idea to find something in January to set common goals for the board?
We should do it soon, though, because calendars will fill up.
Yeah.
Mine's currently in the car, so I don't know what I'm doing on the 28th. Be quiet, Todd.
I hope this question makes sense. If we are aligning board goals to the goals that are going to be identified in the strategic plan, I mean, I'm assuming that whole conversation would be happening with Matt and the executive team as well, correct? And so looking at Matt
Sense.
and saying, does that feel pushed to have that done in January?
No, I think we get that done.
Okay.
Hearing no
Put them
objections.
on the-
Yeah, we'll be fine.
I mean, I guess my preference also would be to do it as soon as we can. That way we have, because we don't have, looking at the scope of the year and how many actual meeting dates we're going to have to work on this stuff, we need to make sure that we're capitalizing on much time as we can. So if we can find a time in January, that would be great. If not, we're going to have to push it to late February if we stick with the work session schedule. Yeah.
Just in some of the networks I'm in as well, I've seen other districts have board goals, to your point about that, so I'll try to get samples of that to all of you as soon as I can.
We might include board self-evaluation in that conversation as well.
Yes, yes, that would be wonderful. And you had provided, I believe last year at the beginning of the year when we just came on the board with the tool that
Right.
exists. Is that an OSBA tool?
OSBA thing, isn't it, Linda?
It's a Southwest regional
Okay.
piece.
Yeah, and
Happy to send it out again.
that would be great. I think that just being able to review that and whether or not we actually tackle that self-assessment immediately or just use it as a framework to help build out the goals and what that looks like for the work sessions would be really helpful.
As well as the board handbook piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a
so
lot of work.
We'll work on all those and work on finding a date prior to the organizational meeting so that people's calendar doesn't fill up in January. And then we'll align that with the strategic plan. So, all right. Any other questions regarding the strategic plan?
Thank you for the extra
Thanks, no problem.
points and things
Absolutely.
you put in. That's helpful.
Can I just ask a question of clarification? Is the determination of if we stick with the work session structure, is that going to happen at the organizational meeting, or is that something that we can have a conversation about prior to that meeting? Like
It would
now?
either be right now. I mean, we
Like
could.
now?
I-
Like,
can
do
have
we
it right
agree
now?
that those are worthwhile? Do we want to stick with those? It would just help in the planning of the work if we said, yeah, we all tentatively agree that it was a good structure and we will need it to move forward, or no, we want to maintain.
I don't think you need to set it in stone right now at all.
Okay.
You can always, we have meetings scheduled for what, the second, fourth Monday of every month. We can make it a work session or not, doesn't.
I think we
So-
have to.
Plan it at
We have to-
for the whole year.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying we would have that, just decide that at the
We don't need to
organizational meeting?
decide the whole year at one meeting.
I think
In
you
terms
do.
of the notice and all that, it's the same whether it's a work
the
session or
same.
not.
So if you,
Oh, unless we
so
just
at the
change the time.
organizational
It's not
meeting,
different.
you'll set your calendar, and so you'll set your regular meeting dates.
Okay.
And I think the point that Todd's making is whether it's whatever date, you can make it a work session. A regular meeting can
Could
be a
we
work
can ju- 'cause
session.
we usually do the work sessions earlier, longer, so we could just change the timing if we need to, right?
You can change the
Yeah.
timing of any meeting. And
So we already have two schedules, like to your point, we already have the two.
And what we can do is, and we talked about this at agenda setting too, is trying to put a calendar together and send it out to you all prior to, so you can tell us when you have conflicts, so that we can try to have something worked out before you get to the meeting, and then you're going
Yeah.
back and forth. So,
But in terms of the structure of the meeting, it's still noticed like a
So it
regular
doesn't
meeting.
matter.
It doesn't matter.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was getting
And we may want to be flexible, as we talk about
Sure.
flexibility
Yeah.
with everything that we're doing
Yeah.
in structuring it toward needs that come up. And
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of change over the course of the next year, so I think we need to be agile and responsive to that.
I agree.
Agile's good.
You like agile?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, with that, we come to our first opportunity for public comment regarding anything that is an agenda item. And I see one person has signed up for public comment. I don't know if they want to speak in the first public comment or the second public comment. So I have Mary Flory signed up. Do you, at the end? Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this point?
Rusty Jesse, 6564 Justice Lane. No, I'm confused too by the different types of meetings the board holds, because I noticed, I was going to come last meeting and it said on the website that it was a work session, so I interpreted that to mean an executive session, which meant the doors were closed. So I don't know if something could be placed, because you were starting to explain that to all of us, maybe put something on the website, so that way we understand what the different, different things are. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board at this time? Thank you, Rusty, for that clarification. There are very clear rules. I'll let Jenny do this, 'cause she's the master of this.
Sure. There are very clear rules on different meetings. And I will get the question of, is that a closed meeting? None of our meetings are closed. We can go into closed session for executive session for very specific reasons, and we have to stay on topic and only discuss those items. But all meetings are held in public other than that piece. But I do like your recommendation maybe on our website to put, a special meeting, a regular meeting is one that we set at the beginning of the year. We do send out, in this district, we do change the times of our meetings depending on schedules or depending on if we want to do an executive session at the beginning. And so we'll send out a notice. And anybody who wants a notice to be noticed for any special meeting can send us an email, and you can be put on that list. And then when I send out a notice for a special meeting or a notice as to change of time or location, then you'll get all of those notices as well. But maybe putting just a description on our website, the board section.
Smart.
I think that's a good, thank you.
And Jenny, traditionally, and this is just as much for me, Rusty, as it is for you, the question, traditionally when we do a work session, we would not take any action on anything. Is that correct?
Traditionally, a work session is a work session, but it is a meeting. So
Right, okay.
I'm probably going to get too technical, but if it's a regular meeting, whether it's a work session or not, you can discuss anything on the agenda. If it's a special meeting is for a specific purpose or purposes. So if it's a work session, then, and you are discussing a certain topic, you could have an agenda and take action, but it has to be whatever that specific topic is that you've noticed for the special meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Thanks.
And we had said that typically we wouldn't do votes in special meetings, however, or in a work session rather. However, then we had a situation where we were doing the 5-year forecast during that work session. So unfortunately, then we did have to vote on it because we're up against the deadline for approval of the 5-year forecast.
Right.
So, all right. Now we will move on to board reports, and we have the policy committee.
Yes, we do. And we
here
have
they
the second readings tonight for the board policy, and we have a policy meeting to come.
Yes.
Yes.
So I did want to ask a question of
Sure.
both of you on policy, and I'm sorry Rob is not here to answer it, but.
He's here.
Rob
Oh,
is
he
back
here?
there in the
Okay.
back, yes.
So
Just fading in.
I noticed the anti-harassment was on here, and the only major change that I saw in there was the removal of the compliance officer.
Come on down.
From the recommendation of Neola, when they talk about compliance officers for any type of investigation, it's been their recommendation to list out specific names and titles of positions versus generalities. So it's, we need to update
So we
that.
still do need to have a compliance officer is my
Yes,
question.
yes,
Okay.
yes, and we do.
All right, that was my only question. Thanks, Rob.
That was easy.
It was a while ago. Had to dig back in the.
There was a lot on there.
Yeah, it was.
There was a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to make, is that was our kind of re-up on the Neola updates and going through all of them. I'm not sure if we, after this past one, sent out the email of kind of all the highlights, or was that the last one we did? I don't remember.
It's been a
Got
couple
an
ago.
email.
It's been a while ago.
Okay. I'm getting the long time ago.
Yeah.
All right, good deal.
All right, community engagement?
Oh, I'm awake. We had 4 community conversations last week, 2 junior highs the LGBTQ one, and the strategic plan one. Is that all? We had a coffee chat. We had a lot of community engagement last week. And we had a DPC meeting where we showed the movie Most Likely to Succeed to DPC and got their feedback on it. I think that's it.
Take a break till January.
Yes, we are taking a break from community conversations till January. We have many in January, like 3 or 4.
I don't know if it's just me or if it feels like we have had a lot of community conversations, which is wonderful that we are out there and listening. I know December is a busy month, and there are other points in the year that are busy as well. I know that we also have the organizational meeting coming up, so new people will be serving on committees and things like that. I would just like to make a statement of, as we think about next year, really thinking about timing of these. I don't think it's that we shouldn't be doing it. It's just how can we think about how we're doing it more strategically in regards to making sure that we get the most people out there. I kind of getting a feeling, and it could just be me, that maybe there are so many that it's becoming deaf on some ears, right? It's like it's just becoming background noise. So all of my suggestion would be, as we look into the new year, how can we look at the scope of the year and the community conversations we're doing, streamline them a bit to maybe try to get more people to come out to maybe fewer. Just my
I agree, Brad.
one person's.
I think it's time to look at it again and just freshen it up. We've been doing it for several years. Not a bad idea at all.
Yep.
I think we're currently scheduled through February, so it would probably have to be something we look at next school year. I mean, I think they're pretty heavily scheduled through February and March, but yes.
Well, and I noticed a few of them that we're doing seem like they could be more in buckets rather than individual conversations. And so just looking at those and having a conversation around, could that be one topic we're having a conversation about and dividing that one community conversation into 3 parts, or do we need to have 3 separate conversations? So again, I think there's value in all the
Right.
conversations we're having. It's just more, could it be done in a more systematic, streamlined way to pull more people out at those times?
Okay, yeah.
Appreciate the feedback. Butler Tech?
Butler Tech meets tomorrow evening, and the org meeting has also been set for January 8th for Butler Tech. We just returned from a conference in San Antonio. It was an Association of Career Technical Education, and it was a great conference, some really good conversation and sessions on employability skills and what our business community is looking for out of the educational process, measuring soft skills that we talk a lot about, but we don't talk about the metrics around those necessarily. So there was some great information. I'll post it up on the board docs so everyone has some access to that information.
Oh, that'd be great.
Being on the board of Butler Tech, do you all have committees as well that you work within on that board?
A much smaller number, but yes.
How many board members are there on Butler Tech?
10.
10. What committees do you engage
There's
in?
strategic planning, legislative, and basically it's a board development committee.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Which we don't have, but that's one we do not collectively have here.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
That's it.
Okay. Finance Committee?
Jenny, did you want to talk about that first?
Sure. We held a committee meeting last Friday of our Finance Committee to start the discussion surrounding the fund balance policy that we talked about reviewing, and had a good discussion, lots of follow-up from the meeting, and we're planning on meeting again January 10th, I believe. January 10th. So we're looking at the fund balance policy, like a rainy day fund policy, reviewing that, whether that's something that we would want to do, as well as a few other things that have come up, one of which is possibility of an innovation fund that we would set up internally within our district and set up some guidelines there for staff, and working through something like that. Debt service policy, we're going to also review that as well. So we're rolling up our sleeves
Great.
Want to add anything, Kelly?
I think she pretty much covered it. What we did is just added work to Adam's plate.
Yes.
He's tough.
I did want to ask if we're considering bringing in the Business Advisory Council at our next meeting. We were talking about rolling those two groups together, and I still think I would like to see that happen this year.
Are we talking, I'm a little confused. Are we talking about rolling the business advisory or a superintendent's committee with the finance committee? That's what I was unsure of.
I think we were talking about rolling it into the finance committee.
The superintendent committee. Or is that different than the business advisory committee?
It's the same.
It can serve as the business advisory. The business advisory committee is more of like something in the Ohio Revised Code section, but this can serve as both. We do actually have bylaws for the finance committee that's very limited, and I think it's like maxed at 8 committee members. So if we want to do something like that, we're going to need to
Update.
develop
Right.
bylaws and all of that stuff. But in the meantime, we'll just keep doing this work.
Finance
But yes,
committee.
we've
Okay.
We talked at the
about
and it
beginning of
seems
this,
like-
of this
We did.
calendar year about pulling those together this year, and we haven't managed to get there yet.
We did.
Right, and to Brad's point before about combining things and trying to streamline, I think that kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Is there a time frame for the work that you're planning on doing in that committee? I know it's taken a while to get the committee to get going.
I'm planning on, at the next committee meeting, having sample policies put together and put in front of the group, and then coming up with a recommendation in the next few months. Yeah.
We talked about March.
And then in March to look at facilities. So maybe March might be the best time to pull together
Yeah.
those two committees.
I think that would make sense.
And the timing of that makes sense because we will have gotten our enrollment study back, updated our facilities master plan, so it makes sense to pull the groups together maybe in March.
This may be outside of the scope of the finance committee, I'm not sure, but as we talk facilities, are there going to be opportunities for us as a board and other stakeholders to engage in tours of the buildings, to physically see the shape of some of our buildings and be able to visualize the growth, the expansion, whatever that may be?
Yep. And I think that fits that committee as well. I mean, I don't think that's out of the scope of that at all.
I think it's out of the scope of the finance committee.
But if we're combining finance with
If we're
the
combining
business.
the
You asked
two
about
groups.
the work in the finance committee. I spent 2 years on the finance committee and no work gets done there. I'm not sure why it exists. So you should go ahead and combine it with the business advisory.
We actually also have had a facilities planning committee in the past. And as we're looking at this long-term piece, when we do the org meeting in January, perhaps we should consider a facilities planning committee.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I just, however it exists, I'm not too concerned about from my standpoint. It's more that I believe that all of us, if we're starting to talk about facilities, I think that all of us need to visually see the facilities and have a common conversations. I would hate for that to be a few people going out and seeing and coming and reporting back. I think us all seeing it together and having a clear understanding of the needs of our district is really important.
And we can talk about at the organizational meeting if you want to pull together a facilities committee meeting or a committee.
Okay.
However you want to do that, but
I agree with Brad's
sense
point
to
that the entire
let's do
board
that.
should be
Yeah, maybe we just-
informed, but that committee might be helpful in
Yeah.
developing the plans and then
Yeah.
making sure that they're what they need to be.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Legislative committee.
Well, our biggest news of the day that's pertinent to our graduates is House Bill 491, which we're all delighted to see has come out of the House and the Senate. It's now with the governor.
It is with the governor.
It's with the governor,
Matt can
waiting for
smile
a
again.
signature.
He hasn't signed it yet, but yeah.
Matt, would
It
you like to
doesn't-
talk about those changes?
Pretty much, they're the same. It'll be the same requirements as last year's grads. I think the thing that frustrates me is it doesn't go into effect until 90 days after the governor signs it. What are you waiting for? So we got to get that going. There are some changes coming down the pike for the following year's grads and the following year's grads, but they're still fleshing some of that out. Mrs. Schaefer did ask how many students would be impacted today, and currently about 13% of our students will need one of those alternate pathways to graduate or pass the test that they're going through right now. So still a sizable amount to get through.
And Brad, I know that you had a legislative update this week. Do you want to talk about that for a moment? You sent some information out to the board.
Yeah, I would have to remember that. No, I actually printed up, just like I did at the last board meeting, kind of an overview of all the legislative stuff that's been happening. The lame duck session has been doing a lot. They've been very busy. I want to say it was something like 100 different votes in 10 days or something like that, so there was a lot that was going through. So what I did was I just tried to capture in red on the front part of this kind of the high-level stuff that was happening, and then on the back pages, in-depth, different stuff. I don't necessarily think I need to read through that kind of stuff, but just another update.
Is this the same as your email?
It's a little bit more in-depth from the email, but yes, covers pretty much the same stuff. This was done a few days after, so if anything happened, and then it was added on this document, and I gave away all mine as
Thanks
well,
for pulling it. Would you like one back?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for pulling that together.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Sharing it out. And we have a legislative place on board docs if you'd like to post it there.
Yes, I could learn how to do that. I would love to.
All right.
Would you prefer that instead of printing it out, I just put it on board docs, or is it good just to have a hard copy at the meeting?
I'm a hard copy person, but I'll go to board docs too.
Okay. Either way.
We just keep it there, though,
Okay.
so that it's filed.
I will make sure and I do that.
Thank
Yep.
you. Jenny, did you have anything on legislative?
We continue to meet on the school funding work group. We met last week. This week we'll be doing subcommittee report outs and webinars. I have a webinar on Thursday for the subcommittee that I'm on. So we continue to do that work.
I did have a question. Linda, on House Bill 343, the property values, are we as a board, do we have a stance on that? Are we advocating one way or the other? I know they continue the hearings. Do we have a voice in that?
Yes, we have a voice.
Okay. Do we not?
We have not taken a stance on that.
Okay.
And I can speak from personally and professionally why I have not gone up and testified, because our local senator, that has been one of the things that he has championed.
Okay.
So we, as a district, we have not gone up and testified one way or another on that. I've had conversations with him on it and the pros and cons of that. I have spoken to a few of my colleagues, one of which who did go up and testify, and he was going to be part of the a group that got together to talk about it, and he believes that quite a bit of this will probably come out as best practices and maybe not as legislative changes, but more of what you should do in best practices. And I'm just going to say, I believe we're already meeting those best practices because...
Can you give some examples?
Sure. Setting a threshold on when you're going to do it, saying that the attorneys can't go do it without someone in the district or the district approving it. We reviewed the entire list and you all even voted on it. So we are well above and beyond what even the legislation would even require. So I think we're already there.
Great.
Well, I think what we did this past year with making it very transparent was a very good step in the right direction, and that's part of what the legislation was intended to accomplish.
Well, and also avoiding the residential piece, I saw was
Right.
a piece of the legislation
Yeah, I forgot
as
that
well.
point. Mm-hmm.
When I read it.
It just keeps popping up. I thought I would ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just had one other piece for legislative that kind of fits. As you know, I'm on the State Superintendent Advisory Board. We met last week. We worked on two questions. How do we increase the supply of highly effective teachers and leaders and provide supports to ensure they are effective or highly effective? That was one. Question two that we worked on collaboratively was, how do we work together with parents, caregivers, and community partners to help schools meet the needs of the whole child? Something that we've been talking about, the social emotional needs of our kids. So that was our primary focus that we just started touching the surface on last week. So just wanted to share that as well.
Right. Diversity Committee?
The only thing I would say is we had a community conversation, was it last week?
Yep.
LGBTQIA, a lot of positive feedback from our parents and from our students. I think we had about 35 members of the community there. So just wanted to mention that.
We also had an invitation to the mosque that Matt wasn't able to attend because he was flying to New York. Linda and I were there. They were very hospitable, and it was a great conversation and nice to have that conversation. They had a variety of community leaders there, so that was a good conversation this week as well. Angie Brown was there as well with us, so we appreciated that invitation. So, all right. Board action items, we have a resolution for the OSBA committee work that Linda is doing. So do I have a motion to approve I don't know what to call it, the OSBA committee resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Can I just ask what it is? Like, not how much it is, but what, like, is it something that happens at the beginning of the year? I only ask because, does this come out of that fund that we use to go to OSBA and NSBA? And do we budget for that at the beginning of the year?
Yes, so the money that you set up, I feel like we've talked about the organizational meeting a lot tonight, but that is one of those pieces that you do at the organizational meeting is you set aside those funds. And anytime a board member travels on behalf of the district and it's looked at as board business, then it's taken out of that fund. So, and that's what this resolution basically says, is that a committee that a board member would serve on behalf of OSBA is looked at as board business, and that the rules apply to all board business. And yeah.
What committee is it? Just curious.
It's called the Federal Relations Network, FRN.
Oh, cool.
And there are 2 representatives appointed by the executive director of the Ohio School Board Association for each congressional district in Ohio and across the state. So it's under the bigger umbrella of National School Board Association.
Do they have it every year?
It's a continuing project.
Okay.
And we meet with local, state, and federal legislators.
Is it in Washington?
The federal event is, but we meet with them back home as well.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
Any further discussion? Jenny, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Lovell?
Yes.
Mr. Parnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Connor?
Abstain.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Treasurer's recommendations A and B for board meeting minutes and invoice approval. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Would anybody like me to explain the approval of the invoices?
I would appreciate that, Jenny. Thank you.
So the invoices that are listed, the reason why I'm asking for your approval is because by board policy, if we get an invoice that's dated prior to the date of the purchase order, which is the authorization to spend the money, and it's over $3,000, I must bring it to the Board of Education for approval. And these 5 we're bringing to you after we basically did a self-audit and found these, and we're bringing them to you. So we don't ever like to see these. It doesn't make me happy to bring them forward, but I'm following board policy, and this is what we must do.
Thank you. Jenny, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Lovell?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Parnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have superintendent's recommendations A through E, personnel items, strategic plan, program of studies, board policies, and donations. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Jenny, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Parnell,
Yes.
Mr. Lovell,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer.
Yes.
Thank you.
That brings us to our second opportunity for public comment. We have one person signed in. Mary, if you'd like to come into the mic, Mary Flory.
Hi, my name is Mary Flory. I live on Christine Avenue, a couple blocks from Shawnee. We walk to Shawnee Elementary. I had the opportunity to attend last week's community conversations, and I had the chance to hear about the LGBTQIA experience at Lakota from students and also some from very passionate parents and attendees that were there, and I learned a lot. And I wholeheartedly agree that a Lakota student and any Lakota student has a right to a school experience that is safe and respectful. And every parent and every educator, I think, wants each student to feel valued, to be heard, to be safe, to be treated with kindness and respect. The community conversation, however, was designed to focus on the LGBTQIA students' personal experiences in the school district, as well as brainstorming ways that the district could change to meet the needs of the community. And as a result, this was not a setting for anyone who had maybe a differing viewpoint to share or ask questions. I think issues surrounding the LGBTQIA students is obviously important. And it was apparent that Lakota is looking at possible changes within the district. I would caution or just ask that the board, as they begin or before they begin to formulate these changes, whether it be in staff training, curriculum, or other areas, I would just encourage them to gather feedback from maybe not just one passionate side of a complex issue, but from a larger number of the constituents who are in the district that may have other views or opinions or concerns. To my knowledge, the community as a whole is not really aware of possible changes surrounding the issue and maybe not have had the opportunity to provide feedback. I think creating an opportunity for more individuals to comment and share, even those with views that differ from those at the conversation, is still important. Everyone's voice needs to be heard and respected. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board at this time? Thank you, Mary. I appreciate your feedback and opinion and sharing your thoughts with us tonight. And I apologize if you didn't feel that we made everyone's voice feel heard that night and create an opportunity for everyone to feel heard at our community conversation. So thank you for voicing that and sharing that with us this evening. So I don't know, Matt, if you have anything
Nope,
you'd
I
like
think
to
you
add. Or
covered it. Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll move to closing comments. I'll start with you, Matt.
Just a reminder for the board and for our community that our Cyber Academy session is this Wednesday at 7 p.m. at the Marriott North, and they have almost 300 people signed up for that. Tells me that there's a lot of interest in it, and I'm excited about that opportunity for our kids. And happy holidays.
Happy holidays. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is during the holidays, we all get so busy and we focus on, like I do, all the things I haven't gotten finished yet. But today I was reminded through the kindness of a coworker who reached out and kind of paid it forward with something he did for a family in our community. And so just don't forget those who are less fortunate. And it's great working in this school district where we do constantly give back, and we just have good people in the community, and our staff is a reflection of that. So that's it.
Wishing our students good luck on all of the end of the session testing and all that. Safe travels for all of our families, and wishing everyone a joyous and peace-filled time with family and friends. I think sometimes we just need to take a deep breath. It's a good time for that. So please enjoy your time off.
Just to piggyback off of what everybody said, and Jenny, we have a lot going on around our district. If you follow anything on social media, you'll see all of our individual schools, the school district as a whole, Reach Out Lakota. There are some incredible organizations that we partner with out there that are really digging deep and getting in relationship with our families that are in need, and seeing all of our students come together to lift them up and support them over the holiday season and throughout the year. I know this past Saturday, Reach Out Lakota had their annual gift extravaganza, where they were able to take the gifts that were donated and get those into the hands of the families in need. I know over Thanksgiving as well, partnership with local churches as well for the Thanksgiving food drive boxes. So there's so many great things going on, and it's just great to be a part of a community that, even though sometimes may have differences, set those things aside and really come together and support all the kids that are in need and the families that are in need. So again, happy holidays to everyone. Very Merry Christmas. Looking forward to some time with family and off for a little bit. So I wish everybody on the board as well Merry Christmas.
You too.
Thank you, Todd.
I have no closing comments other than happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Thanks.
Yeah, at this point, I just agree with everybody, but I do have to say one thing that I really liked about the community and how our individual school buildings, you know, everybody has a giving tree, and so people were putting on Facebook, so I think I've been at 5 elementary schools because I'm a sucker and I just go pick a thing off of every tree. But one of the things that I love that some of the schools are doing, and I believe Woodland was one that I did yesterday, is that they are on their tree, they're, you know, you take the items, you take the item and you buy it, but they are asking you just to give it to them, and they are giving it to the parent and allowing the parent to wrap it so that it's not something that, you know, like it's coming from the parent. And I thought that was really, really cool. So again, Merry Christmas to everybody and have a good break.
Today's the last day of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah to all of our families who are celebrating. The hashtag that we're doing right now is Lakota Gives Back. So in concert kind of with everything that's being said right now, one of the things I wanted to recognize was the board spearheads the Stuff the Bus Challenge, but thank you to all of our families that participated in that. Because of that, we gave nearly 35,000 pounds of food to Reach Out Lakota and our families in need. And they said through the different drives, not just that drive, but all the different drives that the schools do, they get over about 60% of their donations through different drives that Lakota does. So thank you, thank you, thank you to all of our families in that Lakota Gives Back. In addition, there was a picture that surfaced this week from the Army-Navy game of 3 of our Lakota East grads who are going to the different service academies. So that was a really neat picture to see those gentlemen reuniting at the Army-Navy game from our service academies, and talk about Lakota Gives Back and service. That right there is certainly giving back. So thank you for everyone giving back, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and have a great Happy New Year. So with that, we are going to, I would like a motion to go into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jenny, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Lovell?
Yes. Sorry.
Mr. Parnell?
Mid-cough.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Yes, and we will not be taking action when we come out of executive session. Sorry.
Sorry.
I knew my name was coming.
I'll donate my cough drop to you.